If you've come this far without hearing about World Anvil, then I feel pretty lucky to be the one to make that introduction, because it's pretty much a great tool. So let's get into World Anvil on today's Toolsday. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner. Welcome back to the Daily D20, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. And like I mentioned, today we're talking about a tool called World Anvil, which is a website. You can look it up, worldanvil.com. Link will be in the description. The reason I say if you haven't heard of World Anvil is because this thing has been on the scene for quite a while, and there's pretty much every major D&D content creator person touts World Anvil as a great tool and has some great uses. And I was very reluctant. I spent a long time saying I don't need it. I don't need World Anvil. I don't want to sell out and talk about World Anvil. But then I started using it a little bit, and now I'm like, have you heard about World Anvil? This thing is cool. And it could have made building my world so much easier if I had looked at this. And now that I have it, it's going to make building my world a lot easier moving forward. It's not only designed for game masters, it's really designed for all sorts of creative types that want to build worlds and write and create things. It gives you a lot of tools and a lot of resources to do that exact task. So that's why I want to share it with you. Even if you're not a game master, even if you're just a player, and you're just playing Dungeons and Dragons and you're like, oh, I want to write stories about my character, they have a whole section dedicated to writing stories about your character and coming up with character backlog. It's really cool. I'm going to be doing that for my characters that I play in games because I do enjoy building on the backstory. So what can World Anvil actually do for you? Well, you document and you can build out kind of a wiki page. This is one of the things. A wiki page of your world. You start by putting articles in place. You can write basic overviews of your world. You can write history or lore of your world. You can make cities and write articles about the cities, and it formats them nicely to be an easy to read format that just makes it pleasing to the eye to read and makes it look like a very professionally designed world built on World Anvil. Another part of that, if you're getting into map making and you like building maps like I do, it allows you to do interactive maps. So for an example, something you can do is make a big world map. Have that on the page, and then when someone looks at your world map, like you or your players, someone goes and looks at it, they can click on a name, for example, and it will zoom in and it can show maybe the region map of that area. Maybe it's a little more detailed, has cities and villages and hamlets kind of built onto this region map. Clicking on that, they can go into the towns. In the towns, they can click on maps and see maps of houses or maps of dungeons even. And all of that can be connected to one big world map that you can scroll around and interact with. It actually, to me, that just sounds awesome. It sounds fun. It sounds like something I really want to do, and that's why I'm working on building my big world map for Yindir, so I can upload that to World Anvil and start putting in all the pieces that I really need to make a cool interactive map. Now, my World Anvil account, I will link it into my website eventually. I'll leave a link in the description below. You'll see that not much is there right now because I really just got started. But I do like the site, and that's why I'm talking about it now. It also has timelines. You can create timelines of the events of your world, the major events or major maybe wars or catastrophes that might happen. Almost every D&D player I know of has some sort of event that they call the cataclysm or the catastrophe or the reckoning or the sundering, some big event that changes the face of their world. Almost everyone I know has one of those, and that's cool. It's a neat kind of event. It's a neat trope to use. I like it. But you can put that on timeline to know exactly when it happened in the timeline of your world. You can also create timelines for your adventures. So if you're running a campaign and the players are making major events, you can make a timeline of those events and embed it with the timeline of your world so you can see how much of time these players actually influence the world around you. World Anvil is also a community. Like, I know most sites have built in kind of a social media aspect to them. It's kind of unavoidable at this point. If you want to have a website, you have to have a social media side to it. World Anvil does that in a way where the focus is on the world building and the creative side of the people, so you can meet tons of creative people who are building their own worlds, building their campaigns. You can follow along with their stories, follow along with the characters they've created, and just really get involved in the fantasy worlds that other people have come up with out there in the world. And there are thousands of fantasy worlds that people have created. It's amazing the creativity that people have and the way that the games and tabletop role-playing games just allow us to express those at the game table. I will also point out that the whole World Anvil thing is system agnostic, meaning you don't have to do, D&D with it. You can create your own role-playing system. You can use Pathfinder or Starfinder or the Star Trek role-playing game. You can use pretty much any role-playing game system, and more often than not, they already have the rule sets imported in there, so when you create a creature on World Anvil, which you can create a creature on World Anvil, it gives you kind of the stat block you already need, so you can put in all the information you need for that creature, and it makes a nice, pleasing to look at stat block. But the thing I really got excited about when I started playing with World Anvil, and why I wanted to bring it up, is not all the features. It has a lot of features. There's too many features. There's too many things you can post on World Anvil. It's ridiculous. But the fact that when you go on there and you need to post something, it gives you prompts. And I really liked this, because I'm making videos about world building. Like tomorrow, there's going to be a video about world building, and I can come up with a lot of ideas and come up with things you need to think about and say things you should think about, but I'm going to miss something. And maybe there's things I'm going to say and you're going to miss it. Or maybe things that you're just sitting down building your world and you're not thinking about. World Anvil has prompts for everything, like a crazy amount of prompts. Like, you go to build a city, it's going to ask you about the government, it's going to ask you about the economy, it's going to ask you about the trade, it's going to ask you about every little detail of the city that you might want to put in there. Obviously, you don't need to fill them all out. There's no required fields that you have to fill out to create a city, but it gives you all these questions and things to think about, which really just serves as inspiration. When you're thinking about a city and you're like, oh, I want to build a city, and then you see an idea, oh, what does your city do for money? That kind of can spark the imagination and get you thinking about, what does my city do for money? And that helps build the world and make it a little more full. I just think it's cool. I thought it was rad. I was like, this is awesome. I wish I had more time to sit and do this. Now I have to make more time to sit and do that. But I know coming up in this month of July, I'm doing this RPG writer thing. I'm going to be using World Anvil pretty heavily, doing that probably to help build out the scenario I want to build, because you can also create encounters. You can do so much with it, and it's such a great tool. Now, I know I'm rambling at this point because, like I said, I've barely scratched the surface. I'm really new to it, but I wanted to put this out there and say, hey, go check it out for yourself. It's cool, and they do have a free tier, so you don't have to pay anything to use it. And I highly recommend going and checking it out. Even if you don't like the way it's laid out and you don't like the tool to be used, go for the prompts. Go to see what they suggest you add into your world and your city and your homes and your towns and your buildings. See what they have to say and try and incorporate that in your own world building, even if you don't use World Anvil. It's a good resource and a good learning experience for new GMs and old GMs alike, so go check that out. Let me know in the comments below, if you check out World Anvil, what you like the most about it. Let me know. I'll go check that out too, and we'll have a discussion about World Anvil. That'd be cool. If you want to see more cool tools on the Toolsday playlist, go ahead and click this playlist over here. And if you want to see more about world building, go ahead and click this video over here. And of course, everyone, I've been Richard Quiner. Thanks for watching.